As an intelligence officer, you don't succeed always. Failure is your medal. Well, I'm Prabhakar Alok, police officer who retired from Intelligence Bureau after a service of nearly 30 years.
An intelligence officer, a celebrated IPS officer who was involved in several missions and several projects. And why did you choose to crack UPSC?
Well, but I'll give you a real answer. Why I chose to appear for UPSC. It was in search of livelihood. You could cover 4 of the 5 levels of human needs in one go. In the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you are in uniform, people perceive you as Singham. People don't perceive you as a human being. There is contradiction, there is a dissonance between your actual self and your perceived self. You want to be yourself or you want to be Singham.
And that's a dichotomy that one lives with. What does it take for an IPS officer to become an intelligence officer?
Well, every police officer, IPS officer can become an intelligence officer. But the only thing is that is required is the attitude of covertness. If you are ready to remain undercover or deny your identity, deny that you are having your 3 letters on your shoulder, then you can become intelligence officer.
What do you think? What are the other myths that people have that they expect from an IPS officer, from an intelligence officer?
There is a sort of romanticism involved with intelligence work, and that romanticism is personified by James Bond.
How does the mind of a spy work?
Spies are skeptics.
So they would doubt everything.
We question everything.
Let me just read something that I read. This I'm referring to 2611 because it says that IB Joint Director Prabhakar Alok issued an alert dated November 19, and then within a week this happened. What is it that we are missing here?
A very difficult question,
When you got the news of Mumbai attack, how was it for you?
Don't transport me back to that day, but then I was numb.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast, The Ex-Monks Drive. This is your host, Gaurav Arora. And today's episode is really special for several reasons. Why? Because the first time we are going to bring to you an IPS officer, a celebrated IPS officer who was involved in several missions and several projects that you would be very interested to know about. An intelligence officer. And in this episode, we are going to take a deeper dive into what does it mean to be an IPS officer. I'm sure after 12th fail, you'd be interested to know more about what does it take to crack an UPSC exam. By the way, what differentiates a police officer from an intelligence officer? Let's take a deeper dive and listen from Director IB Prabhakar Aloka and understand the realities of this world. May not be as shiny as it appears to be, but I'm sure there's something that we would be inspired with. Prabhakar ji, thank you so much. Such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav, for asking me to come to this forum. It has been my dream. I'll tell you later why it has been my dream.
Thank you. And you know what? When finally you accepted this invitation to be on this podcast, I was both excited. At the same time, I was very nervous to an extent that I started biting my nails and I was not sure how would I be able to handle this conversation if I'm the right person to sit next to you and engage in this kind of a conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Gaurav. This is the most generous introduction I would have ever got. For a man used to carry blank visiting cards, this kind of introduction is really something which puts me in perspective. Perhaps as we go along in our conversation, we'll discover each other more.
Looking forward. Sir, help me understand, whatever little research I could do. Approximately 10% of the people come from that region, Bihar. And I was wondering, what is it about that place that gives birth to this aspiration? And why did you choose to crack UPSC?
Well, I'm not being parochial, but I would say that Biharis are export quality. So not only in UPSC, you will see many Biharis doing exceedingly well in other aspects, other walks of life.
Yeah.
The thing why I told that they are export quality, that generally they flower and flourish only will then move out of Bihar. That is a very strange thing to happen. There could be many reasons. Then coming back to your question of why did I choose to appear for UPSC? Well, I can give you a politically correct answer, which I gave in my personality test in UPSC.
Yeah.
And then perhaps I got selected. And that was, I told that I want to serve the suffering humanity. Well, but I'll give you a real answer. Why I chose to appear for UPSC. It was in search of livelihood, plain and simple. But this was one avenue of livelihood which gave you an advantage that you could cover 4 of the 5 levels of human needs in one go. In the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Safety, security,
Survival, then social recognition, then esteem, and the last one is self-realization. You just come to the bottom of self-realization in one go. You don't have to bother about 4 other levels. And that was the motivation, perhaps compelled us to appear for this exam.
Yeah. Was it easy for you? Because, as you mentioned that most of the Biharis are of export quality. I know in a very lighter manner you have shared something which is very deep, because in my understanding, I personally love Bihari language. The tonality, kahan ja rahe ho, kya kar rahe ho. I love that. Just to share with you, most of my friends who hail from Bihar, either they are doing extremely well or they are struggling. What is it about that place that people either struggle or they flourish?
Well, I don't think there is anything peculiar about that place. It happens. But the thing is that what you see, as I said, that when they come out, they do very well. So perhaps you are seeing only those who have come out and they are doing well. But in every place you will have this kind of divide. Some will be doing very good, some will not be doing so good. So I don't think there is any peculiarity for that place. It's as normal as it could be.
Yeah.
But the only thing is that that perception that when you come out, you see them growing very fast. That division may be accentuating the perception.
Makes sense. In the initial years, in the initial months of joining this cadre, was it something that, hey, this is what I always wanted and I've got that? Or was it a shock to you as well?
As I said that, that this cracking this exam or succeeding in this exam gave me opportunity to cover most of my human needs. The only human need remaining was self-actualization. Now, in that self-actualization, you can understand there is authentic self, which you are, your values, your ideas, your perception.
Who you are as an individual, at the core of it.
And then the second is your assumed self or perceived self that comes out of the collective consciousness of society.
The way people perceive you.
Perceive you. For example, if you are in uniform, people perceive you as Singham. People don't perceive you as a human being, right? There is a contradiction. There is a dissonance between your actual self and your perceived self.
Yeah.
And now that is the dissonance which creates, discord in the sense that what you want to be yourself or you want to be Singham. As the fact that coaching is the only instrument which can resolve this dichotomy. That I have realized, and I have realized late in my life, perhaps a half a decade too late, not demeaning anybody or not casting any aspersion or not telling anything about those who enjoy or those who are at ease with their Singham persona. So I'm not saying, but for me, this was something very discordant, and it created something cognitive dissonance, I would say, in the beginning.
And you've been very generous in saying that coaching exposed you to the world where you could be your own self. And for me, it was an absolute honor, sir, having you sit through the program, the complete program, attending the program. And on several occasions, I was wondering if I should say, I should ask something from you, because the stature that you come from, the kind of positions that you have held in the past, the kind of work that you have done, the way you have served humanity and the country, for me, that was like, wow. Coming back to this, the Singham persona. If you ask me, every time when I encounter a police officer, the first feeling that I have is of, hey, let me just avoid interacting with them. Let me not get into this kind of a conversation because of the image that the police officers have today. They could be corrupted, they are going to disdain you, they would be very disrespectful to you. And the lesser the conversation that I would have with them, the better it is for me. And the moment when I met you or Mr. Srivastava, my complete perception of this community shifted. How was it for you in the initial years? Did you come across police officers who are kicking off the rickshaw pullers just because they are standing in the center? And here is this person who is claiming to be the God's gift to humanity because he's in his uniform.
What to talk of any other persons, I did myself. Because of that, I wanted to live the persona of assumed persona of Singham. Because that is how I thought that the world would perceive me. But then I realized that I'm not doing the right thing. It is something which is not me. It is something which is coming from outside and forcing me to do such things.
That's what people are expecting you to behave.
Because then they will start saying that, no, this police officer is no good. That was the dissonance. I mean, I accept.
So help me understand, sir. What do you think? What does it take for a IPS officer to become an intelligence officer?
Then deny the identity in the sense that deny that you are having your 3 letters on your shoulder. If you are ready to deny that, then you can become intelligence officer with the same qualification, with the same skills.
I'm not been able to even understand that, because the whole life we do things as an individual so that there's an identity attached to my name, so that people can witness the life that I'm experiencing, so that people can celebrate or people can appreciate what I'm doing in my life. And here what you're saying is every IPS can become an intelligence officer provided they are willing to imbibe in the trait of covertness and let go and be in the undercover. How does that work?
That is the whole, I would say, that is the essence of his intelligence work. To develop, I won't say trait, the attitude of covertness. Everywhere you deny your identity in the sense that you simply try to merge with the background. Right. If I'm sitting here, I'm interviewing, and
And you'll not share what's happening, the projects that you're working on, how it all happened.
I always exercise my right to silence.
I'm sure you must be a very happy married person.
So it's a very, I abide by this thing that I will exercise my right to silence anywhere and everywhere. And the point is that, as you rightly said, we want to have witnesses of your life, not in my life, or witnesses of my life. And that is why we say that, we are social animal and so on and so forth. And it is very difficult.
It is very difficult.
It is very difficult not to share, not to make anybody witness of your life. And if you are doing something which is so important for you, which you think that you have done something extraordinary within yourself, you have done something which aligns with your authentic self, but yet you are not able to share. And that is the excruciating aspect, excruciating pain. That is what an intelligence officer.
This is like being a ghost warrior. That you are a warrior, You are taking a stand for the country. You are serving humanity and your fellow citizens by being under the cover. What do you think? What differentiates an intelligence officer from the rest? What are the traits? What are the attitude that you need to have to be a good intelligence officer? One is, you said that the attitude of covertness.
Yeah.
What are the other
And that
traits?
is the primary attitude. Another important thing will be to be aware of rules and regulations. Because, we cannot transcend those rules and regulations. We cannot become illegal or extra. We can't adopt illegal or extra legal methods. Because it's pretty simple. Once you adopt illegal and extra legal methods, you are exposed. Your covetousness goes.
Yeah.
So you have to work within the
boundaries
of law, but yet you understand the boundaries of law, and you have capacity to walk up to the fringes of law. That is important. I am reminded of a cartoon which sums up what the questions you are asking and the answers to that. That cartoon of Dennis the Menace. All of us would have read those cartoons in our childhood. And Dennis the Menace, when he was a mischievous child, he used to always tease his neighbor. And he had a dog called Ruff. So once I think he was scolded, mother or father scolded him for doing something wrong. So he was telling Ruff that, look, I didn't do anything. I didn't break any rule. I simply tried to bend them as far as I can.
Yeah.
So that is what I meant to say, that if you should know the boundaries of the law and be ready to walk up to the fringes of law, but don't transgress it. And that understanding is a very deep understanding. And another aspect is that be aware of your surroundings. Be not only surroundings, be aware of the environment, so to say, in which you are working. The environment means not physical environment. Environment is a social environment, political environment, diplomatic environment. So you have to be aware of everything.
What's happening around you?
What's happening around you. Because, you don't get exact information every time. You are always trying to solve jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Always. And there is certain kind of uncertainty in arriving at the right conclusion.
So the first thing is the attitude of covertness. The second is be aware of the rules of the game, and be willing to bend the rules for as long as you're not crossing the boundaries. Third one is the awareness part of it. Be aware of what's happening around you in the different scenarios, different environment, the social, political, economic environment that you are a part of. So, while I'm just listening to you, you give a beautiful analogy of jigsaw puzzle, that you would have a puzzle piece sitting here, another piece is here, another piece is here. And it depends entirely on you how fast your brain works so that you'll be able to connect the dots. But at the same time, if you look at the world outside, they expect you to give them the precise information. They would expect you as if you're superhumans. How do you bring these two together?
Yeah, now that is the biggest challenge. What we call in our lexicon, it is called as the intelligence hump.
Tell me about that. What is that?
No, intelligence hump it's a speed breaker.
Okay.
And this speed breaker comes because you sometimes you don't have the entire information, right? So then you have to have a trade-off between the timeliness of the information and the accuracy of
the preciseness,
of the information.
Yeah.
So that trade-off, it's again your own experience, your ingenuity, which tells you that, look, it is difficult to cross this hump now. Let us do this thing.
Yeah. Or let us park it for the time being.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised that few of my friends who have been serving in this cadre, they tell me that it's a high pressure job. What do you think? What are the other myths that people have that they expect from an IPS officer, from an intelligence officer, which is far fetched from the reality, from the world that you look at through your own lenses?
There is a sort of romanticism involved with intelligence work.
You said romanticism.
Yeah.
Wow, tell me about that.
And that romanticism is personified by James Bond.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So they feel that, it's a very glamorous kind of work where, the 5 Gs.
You said 5 Gs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guns, girls, gizmos, glamour. And one more thing, glitz.
Glitz.
That is how this intelligence work.
Yeah, they would expect you to have the right kind of gizmos, the right kind of glitz, the right kind of girls, the right kind of guns, always ready at your disposal. And what is the reality instead?
Reality is only 2G. That is grit and guile.
Grit and guile. Because without that, you'll not be able to survive. Forget about indulging in any kind of glamour.
Right. And then obviously, it is not always vodka and martini shaken or stirred. It only shakes your consciousness, it stirs your cognitive abilities. That is major difference in perception.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that intelligence is always supposed to be the hatchet job of government. And it has always been perceived like that. Whereas intelligence is meant to serve the people. They're for public good, for the national security. Government is just a part of the entire apparatus. So these are, I consider, that are major differences. And then because of these last one, intelligence officers are considered to be rogues.
Yeah. And has it happened with you, sir, where you were left with some kind of a guilt, where you were left with some kind of deep, unaddressed pain, that you could do something, but because of your role as an IPS officer, because of your role as an intelligence officer, you did not do that?
Well, I will exercise, I won't say my right to silence, but then I'll slightly change my answer in the sense that, look, as an intelligence officer, you don't succeed always. Failure is your medal. Success, it comes seldom.
And because also you cannot even share your success with anyone. So failure is your medal that you carry with pride.
And that is what I would say, that yes, even if I had guilt, I thought that it's a part of my life. Part of my assumed life or whatever.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Mr. Aloka, you have used this word a couple of times in the last 15-20 minutes, that exercising your silence. When was the time when you realized the importance of silence and not allowing anyone to know your identity, the kind of projects that you're working on, the kind of missions that you are leading?
When we are exposed and we are told about that attitude of covertness, this right to silence is, it is just a corollary. Because that is the most important aspect of survival in this game. Attitude of covertness. And the attitude of covertness pervades everything. It pervades your normal life. It pervades, day-to-day working, day-to-day interaction. Day-to-day interaction with my wife, with my children. It pervades that limits. Because that is where I would say, the true self comes into picture. That how much you are valuing your conduct and your work in this space. And it is, it is difficult, and it is at the same time, it is tactically not correct to let anybody know what you are doing, because what you are doing, as I said right in the beginning, that it is never perfect. There is always a sense of approximation, and that approximation does not allow me to boast of anything.
Yeah.
It is not accurate. At the one level, it is the part of attitude. At the another level, it is a requirement of your job. I mean, requirement of day-to-day job. That is attitude of covertness is a strategic requirement. This is a day-to-day job, and this I learned from somebody who I would have thought, if the history would be written, his name should be written
Wow.
in glowing letters. But then I once asked him, "Sir, would you tell me about your exploits or something?" He said, "I have taken a vow not to talk." Oh, that was, I would say, a point which enlightened me to such an extent that perhaps even if this man's job is written in invisible ink, it will be very good. But lo, it cannot happen.
It's like living a life of a gumnaam insan. It's like, I think if there are saint soldiers on earth, they would be like that. They would be not interested in any kind of glitz and the glamour. They would only be operating from a space of what their core purpose is, to do their own service without looking for any kind of a name or the fame or the recognition for the work that they have done. But it's not easy. I don't think that's very easy.
It's not easy.
Then how do you develop this kind of attitude? What's the process that you go through? How can you kill your own identity on day-to-day basis? How can you restrict yourself when people are asking you, hey, tell me, what do you do? When your children's friends would ask you, what does your dad do? And they would not have any answer. How do you deal with that kind of a situation?
The easiest thing will be to make up stories. But then there could be holes in stories. So we don't do that. We only tell them that, look, it is something which you forget when you leave the four walls of your office. That is very tough training. That is tough, very tough, I would say, ask, not training, very tough ask. And that is where it separates between the great intelligence officers and the normal intelligence
Yeah, I
officers.
think that is what differentiates one from another, for sure. My limited understanding and the exposure that I've had of interacting with senior intelligence officers, senior IPS officers, they have witnessed extreme emotions in their life by the virtue of the work that they do, the kind of people that they interact with, the kind of cases that they've handled. They get exposed to human truths that a normal civilian might not be, would not be able to access in their whole life. Would you be comfortable sharing a couple of examples, a couple of episodes that you have witnessed in your life that shook you as well? And it's absolutely fine, even if you can share that without names. And I do understand that you will not be sharing the names. So, yeah.
Fundamental human emotions we are all aware of. There are 9 fundamental human emotions which guide ourselves. I mean, there could be permutation and combinations and hues, various hues and of those 9 emotions. Peace and happiness being one, revenge, anger, love,
Hatred, happiness, sadness.
There are 9. I mean, if you go to T3 or departure lounge, you can see those 9 emotions being played on the screen. Of these, I think revenge is powerful. And love and emotion, love and this thing is again the 2 powerful emotions.
And when you're saying powerful means they drive human behavior more than the other emotions. Love, I can understand. Love is considered to be the lightest emotion that vibrates at the higher frequency. Why do you say revenge? Do they work together? Do they drive human behavior? So,
No, they operate separately. I mean, yeah, as I said, that there could be permutation and combinations,
okay.
but then
Okay.
I would believe that since they are fundamental emotions, they will operate separately.
Jim.
I mean, differently. Combinations are all right. I mean, they don't work in silos. So these, I think, drive human behavior in a much concrete way. There was an example, I mean, again, I won't quote the name, but because of the lack of data, there is no correlation. But then in my analysis, I believe that it is linked. There was a boy in a college, very good looking. I mean, he used to be referred to as a chocolate boy. He fell in love with a girl. But then his parents and the girl's parents, they refused to marry their daughter with this boy. And then this boy was supposed to get married to another girl. But then he joined a militant organization. Now, there is no direct correlation, but if we understand human emotions, perhaps it's his loss of love drove him towards this direction. Maybe, I mean.
Yeah.
Now these are the things which do not have, I mean, 100% correlations. Yeah. And as far as revenge is concerned, I mean, there are instances galore. You know, when 1984, when this Golden Temple was attacked. And you see that the revenge motive led to what happened. Then again, we had another instance when they felt that their religious symbols are being destroyed. There was a mass eruption of revenge emotion.
Yeah.
So these are the things which create, discords in society.
Yeah. So, Prabhakar, tell me one thing. No? You have witnessed emotions like revenge and the love and the hatred and the anger to a very different extreme altogether when you're dealing with people in your role as an IPS officer and as an intelligence officer. Are you able to draw any parallel between what happens in that world and what happens in our day-to-day life? Is it the same? Is it different? Or the people that you deal with they're totally different? They've got a very different worldview of the world that they live in? Or how is it? What are the learnings that you are able to draw from there and put it into practice in the world that I live in? We live in the world of civilians.
If I deconstruct the entire thing, I do not see any difference between the two worlds. The issue boils down to only one thing, the discord between your assumed self and authentic self. That is the only discordant note which creates all kinds of behaviors. I mean, it could be that, I mean, I followed certain methods which was not so harmful to the society, but others followed some methods which became harmful to the society. But it boils down to only one thing, or if reduced to the basic emotions, anxiety. It is only anxiety which creates
the dissonance
and discordant behaviors. So I do not find any difference between the two worlds. The only thing is that perhaps our method of tackling our cognitive dissonance is changed.
Yeah. So let's shift the gears. After a certain point in time, one of your key roles was to train other people as well, to work with other intelligence officers to get better at what they were doing. You were involved in training spies. How does the mind of a spy work? I mean, how do they look at a situation? How do they decode a situation? What is it that they bring in that I would not be able to do it. It's like understanding the operating system of a spy.
Spies are skeptics. The first thing.
So they would doubt everything.
They said that if you smell a marigold, don't think that a beautiful girl is going by side. Just think that a dead body is going by side. That is the level of skepticism.
Okay.
So, that you doubt everything.
You doubt everything.
You doubt everything. And from there, you starts your perception. A very simple thing. You go to a tea shop and there are 2 tea shops nearby. You find more people in one tea shop and there nobody there.
Yeah.
You start questioning, why is it so? दोनों बगल बगल है क्यों है ऐसा?
Yeah.
There could be a very simple reason that his tea is not good, his tea is
Yeah.
good.
That's how I would perceive it.
That's good. But then perhaps I would go deeper. What is his social understanding? So these are the things we start questioning. We question everything.
And help me understand, one is questioning everything. One is looking at a situation, looking at another individual from a space of suspicion. What is it that you train spies on? What are the, let's say if I were to look at a closer look of the curriculum that goes, that this is what you need to learn, this is what you need to learn, this is what you need to unlearn, so that you could be an effective spy. So if you can just take me through a quick recap of what do you train these people on?
There's no big curriculum.
Okay.
We train on only one thing: remain covert.
And I think that's where you have written this book as well.
Yeah.
The Operation Highgreave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me, why did you call it Highgreave?
It's an epitome of covertness.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's a lesser known avatar of Vishnu, Highgreave. Highgreave means, high means horse, greave means the neck. The person having horse head
Okay.
is Highgreave. So Highgreave was a demon who had a boon that he will be killed by same entity,
A lookalike.
a look-alike, and then Lord assumed that shape and look and killed him. So as a spy, I have to be what my enemy is.
So you have to look like one, you have to behave like one, you have to enact like one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is what, there's only one training. Be covert
Yeah.
and try to adopt your persona.
This reminds me of a movie, Ayari. I don't know if you have seen.
No, I have not seen
Yeah,
that.
it's a movie where you've got Manoj Vajpayee and Siddharth Malhotra. They are from army. And Manoj Vajpayee, he enacts like Ayar. And in the last, he talks about that why it's very important to change your avatar, right? And if he has to catch hold of a terrorist, then he would become like a beggar sitting in one of the corners and keeping a check on what's happening. You spoke about awareness, what's happening around. I think in that movie, Manoj Vajpayee was a typical Highgreave, where he enacts, he behaves, and gets into the skin of the people that he would like to be in the company, so that he can keep a watch and in the end can get hold of them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that is what training is all about.
Very often when I start to behave who I'm not, it starts to impact me as a person as well. It starts to impact my personality as well. It starts to impact my value system and my belief system as well. And at times it might interfere in the way I show up with my family and with my friends. Have you encountered this kind of a dissonance dilemma where you have to pinch yourself. Hey, shucks, man, that's not who I am. Let me just come back to who I am. How did you deal with that dilemma?
The dilemma is dealt with only one thing: exit. If you can't control your two persona, exit. There's no other way. I had a chance to train a boy.
Exit from the role
Yeah.
of an intelligence officer.
Person had qualifications to assume different persona. I worked with him for quite some time. Then I found that it is not in him to have different persona. I just said, thank you very much, you please look for something else. So that is how. If you can't do, exit. You cannot carry on with dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to create a lot of dissonance within yourself. If I'm a police officer, I cannot be a police officer when I'm dealing with my children.
Yeah.
Right? And if I am a lawyer, I cannot start to interrogate my family members because it's going to create dissonance in my personal life as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Aloka, one of the most challenging aspect of any profession that you're a part of is the way you interact with your team members. And especially more so ever in your role, unless you have the entire team aligned, it can lead to disasters. How was it for you to get your team aligned, making sure that they're totally inspired and they're marching ahead in the same direction where you are in? So,
you had asked me earlier a question that what is the difference between a police job and an intelligence job.
yeah.
Another very important difference I perceive is the leadership style. Whereas in police we are supposed to lead from the front.
Okay.
Here we are supposed to be servant leaders. Servant leaders means that we empower people. We empower people like a servant to make them do their job on their own. Because in most of the circumstances, they are alone. They have to think on their feet. Their survival is in their hands. It is not only empowering with infrastructure and material, it is only empowering psychologically so that they are themselves competent to take action and find ways and means to solve a situation or come out of a situation.
Yeah. But did you come across a situation, because this is very normal in the day-to-day interaction that I get into with different leaders in different organizations, different profiles that people manage, that their team members, they are not totally convinced with what they are doing. And to an extent, they might comply to do something and yet there would not be any kind of commitment. Have you dealt with that, a similar situation? And if you did, how did you deal with that? I mean, how would you invite this person on a mission that you are deployed on?
I believe that each person, everybody cannot have same capability, but each has unique capability. And to achieve a task, you need person with different capabilities. So to understand them is the most important thing in servant leadership.
To understand your team members.
Team members.
Okay.
And herein comes the aspect of listening. A servant leader has to be a good listener. You understand what the people want, what the person wants to do, and then act accordingly. Maybe you have to change your style, not the other person has to change the style.
Yeah.
So that kind of compromises you have to make, because your ultimate goal is that your objective should be achieved. Suppose somebody is good at questioning. I won't send him to the for the surveillance job. I won't. Because for surveillance is, he would say that no, this is not good for me. I can't do this. This is. But he's good at questioning, so let him do that job. Somebody may be good at doing some unimaginative operations. I mean, he is something like, what maverick. I won't make him sit on the desk. I would rather ask him to go into the field and do whatever he wants to do
Yeah.
within the. So the thing is that you have to fit person according to their role. I have firm belief that if you do that, you have very little discordant note in your team.
Yeah, it's like provided I'm willing to listen and putting the people with a specific skill at the right place so that they are totally empowered, they can make the decision and they can be the best version of who they are as an individual.
Yeah. Yeah. And the second thing is that, empathy. Empathy is the most important thing. The most important thing. It is very good to have, empathic people all around you. I mean, your world becomes so much good.
Yeah.
And empathy is different from sympathy, as we all know. Once you show empathy to your team individually, I mean, it's not that there is a collective empathy kind of thing. You can extract much more from them.
Yeah.
A good can become better, better can become best. That is one aspect which I think is very important in. And the third, but not the least, I mean, is that stewardship.
Stewardship. Yeah.
You take responsibility of whatever they do. Give reward to them if they are successful. If they fail, take responsibility. It is not that you do it every time overtly. Even the trust that you will do it is good enough. I had a person whom I deputed for a very difficult task. He first said that, I can't do it. I'll get caught and something like that. I said, you do it. If you get caught, my responsibility. Lo and behold, he did it. And after that, he became extraordinary. Not in this, I mean, he was ready to take decisions on his own. And he was ready to solve his own difficult situation. So I think stewardship is a very important aspect in team building.
Yeah. And if you look at Mr. Aloka, your life, right? How is Mr. Aloka, how is Prabhakar, who entered in this space of IPS as an intelligence officer, how is that Prabhakar different from who you became in this journey? How did this journey transform you as an individual, as a person?
First and foremost, I mean, it gave me opportunity to interact with people of different caliber, different emotions, in different situations. So I was able to understand how people behave.
Yeah.
And that gave me a kind of, you can say, a learning experience.
Interacting with people from different backgrounds.
Different backgrounds.
And the way they show up.
The way they show up. And second thing is that I understood meaning of empathy and compassion. I mean, being the same level, but they are of emotions of different degree. And that's something that created a kind of awareness in me. I mean, I became aware. First thing that I understood things, now the emotion made me aware. I don't claim, but perhaps I became emotionally intelligent. That was one most important thing in my life that has happened.
And did this awareness, did this compassion, empathy ever interfered in your duties as an intelligence officer? Duties which are imperative for you to show up, to imbibe in while dealing with other people.
If anything, it did it improved my performance. It never interfered. After all, we are dealing with human beings.
Yeah.
So if we understand human emotions, if we understand, if I am emotionally intelligent, then perhaps I'm delivering in a much, much, much better way.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Let me just read something that I read while we were doing research on you, while I was saying that what kind of question should I be asking, and your name popped up on several occasions. Let me just read this for you. It goes like this, and I would love to hear from you. What is it that you know of? The Coast Guard actually spotted a terror ship, and this I'm referring to 2611. And I'm aware that you asked me not to get into this subject, but I can't help. It says, we received no IB warning. And this we are referring to 2611 Mumbai attack. What is it that we are missing here? What is it that the IB joint director at that point in time, Prabhakar Alok, knew? Because it says that IB Joint Director Prabhakar Alok issued an alert dated November 19, and then within a week, this happened. What is it that we are missing here?
Should I exercise my right to silence?
I would insist if you can share that.
A very difficult question, because I'm bound with certain things. But then yes, I can share that much that I was a part of counterintelligence, counter-terrorism team, which does counter-terrorism work of this country. And yes, I was, one of the cog in the bigger wheel. I talked to you about the intelligence hump right in the beginning. This is something like that. That you encounter an intelligence hump and then you have to take decision what to do about it. So there could be that you alert your tactical instruments and then wait for things, other things to fall in place so that it becomes exact. As I said right in the beginning, that there is certain kind of uncertainty. The exactness of information and the time involved. If you make the time big, perhaps the information will become exact, but then you lose the time.
The bigger plot. And you don't have time.
You don't have time. These are the hazards of job.
As much as there was some information available, there were certain pieces which might be pointing you to look in that direction, and yet there were certain missing pieces. And when it happened, when you got the news of Mumbai attack, how was it for you? Because you had few pieces of that jigsaw puzzle. What is it that you carried that night, the next day? How did you deal with that?
Don't transport me back to that day, but then I was numb. It stirred my emotions. It shook my consciousness. That's all.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing what you shared. And I would strongly recommend all the listeners to read these two books, because as much as they are fictions, but it's worth taking a deeper dive into what an IB officer goes through. It's not always the glamour and the glitz, which is shown in the James Bond movie. There's much deeper pain that you carry. And with that pain, with that heaviness, you continue to serve the country and help us to remain safe. Thank you so much for your service, for the goodness that you bring in. And as I mentioned, it was an absolute delight and an honor for me just to sit next to you.
Thank you, Gaurav. But I must thank you for this was coaching was one great learning experience for me, and I feel that this discipline should be incorporated in all training curriculum. Because you cannot saturate anybody with his skill. It is impossible.
Yeah.
Skill saturation is impossible. And then there's not unlimited sets of skills.
Yeah.
Skills are also limited. How long can you keep on teaching same sets of skills?
Yeah.
At one point of time, you have to match those skills with the authentic self. That is what I understood about coaching. That maybe of the 100 skills, only 5 would match with the authentic skill, and then the person may start enjoying it. And to that extent, I'm really grateful to you for exposing me to this discipline. Though my only regret, I said in the beginning that I learned it 5 years too late. Thank you. Thank you
Now
very
you
much.
still have time to share your wisdom, your learning, your experiences with the greater world that we are a part of. Thank you so much. Shukran.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to this podcast. For me, it was a sheer honor because not very often we come across individuals who have served nation, keeping their own personal life aside, keeping their identities on one side and continue to serve and be of service to others. I'm sure you would have learned something from this conversation. Now, the question that I'm leaving myself with is, what is that one area in my life where I can continue to serve without any identity attached to that? Take some time to share this podcast with people and the friends and the family that you feel would get benefited. Follow us, subscribe our YouTube channel, and I look forward to meeting you again next week with yet another interesting conversation. Take care of yourself. Stay tuned.